Hello, listener, and welcome to this experience, this adventure that you are about to embark on with us, listening to us spout out our opinions about movies. My name is Juan, here with Mark and Kevin, and hopefully by now you already know we like movies. And today we are here to talk about, uh, we are dipping our toes into the realm of documentaries. This is our first documentary. And along with that, we've picked, I have picked a pretty controversial choice, uh, which is the Matt Walsh film, produced through the Daily Wire website, titled "What Is a Woman?" This is a documentary in which Matt Walsh, writer, blogger, um, yeah, um, public person, sets off on a journey really around um, the globe, you could say, to really to study and try to understand, while at the same time I think shining a light on some of the more difficult to understand aspects of the gender and sexuality agenda that we're seeing everywhere, or at least in media today. And the way in which he does this is by talking to professionals from many fields, including education and universities, to mental health and psychology, um, and to just medical doctors and pediatricians and people all over the place, to try to answer the question, what is a woman, and the conversations that therefore ensue beyond that. And uh and yeah, he has a lot of difficulty getting that question answered. That's pretty much the synopsis of the movie. um I guess. D- I see. I know at the end when we do our ratings, I have to go first. Do I go first here again, or
Yeah, when it's your pick, technically, you're
okay?
supposed to
Okay,
go first.
I
I knew
I
you
will.
had to go through all that, but feel free to pass if you'd like to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been going for a bit. I want to hear your lovely voices, so I will pass. Just for that.
All right, well, I'll take it because I think Kevin's having some mic issues.
Hello,
Uh,
can you hear me?
yeah, hear you now.
Oh, I was just listening. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, What is a Woman is a documentary, and I will quickly just say if you know who Matt Walsh is, then that's kind of what you're getting. That's all I really have to offer on it for my hot take.
All right. I don't know much about Matt Walsh. I found the movie a little tricky to grade because information-wise, I think it gives us a lot to digest pretty quickly. The one thing that really hit me is I did like the subject. It was good. I tried watching it with my daughters. They lasted all of, I think, 60 seconds before they said this movie ain't for me, and then they went to go watch ET. So I was like, they're like it.
That's a
So
good trade.
yeah, I was like, all right, go watch ET. I'm not gonna force you to watch this. Um, I liked it. There's a part of me that throughout was kind of wishing it was more of a miniseries than a movie, because especially in the beginning, I think it shifted from topic to topic really fast. Like, not topic to topic, but it was all about what is a woman. But we're just shifting through things really quick. I think the second half, I think delves like focused and delve and was bouncing back and forth like between like people he was interviewing, and I think that was giving a better view of what people thought and what people like, the way people like were doing the circular thinking and all that. But I just kept coming back to, I wish it was a miniseries. 'Cause I think it was good. The subject, it was, the documentary wise, um it was pretty good. It was okay, but I just wish we could have got more of the meat potatoes of a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. Again, it's a movie, so it's limited, but yeah, but that was my opinion. I'm like, I liked a lot of it. I just didn't think movie wise, I thought it was okay.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to comment on is, and I think both of you guys, in your own way, kind of touched on it, but um, it is a more challenging movie, I think, to review and to discuss. And I think Kevin even um, mentioned this before we we watched the movie, each of us, just because we all probably feel similarly about the subject. But I tried to cast that aside, and I mean, you can compare documentaries, and at the end of the day, it is a film. So there's that aspect of it, and then yeah, I mean, I liked it. I think it's an important film. um it again just shines a spotlight on a very real and serious topic, which is, I think, being just being dominated and conquered by a lot of stuff that is really silly and really ridiculous, and therefore frightening, um, because of the effect that it's having on younger people. Um, so yeah, I thought it was interesting. At the beginning, I would say I was a little bit. I felt. I don't think it was quite the first half, but maybe like the first quarter. I felt a little put off because I felt it was kind of taking the topic a little too lightly. It was kind of more like a mockumentary. So I was kind of at that point kind of maybe a little concerned, about the direction that it was going in. But it definitely, took a more serious tone, and I think it drifted away from that a little bit. It was still There was still some humor in parts, but um, it was also just tense. I think a lot of the conversations that he was having, were very tense, and that's very palpable even as you're watching that. But yeah, I mean, I was engaged with what people had to say, even if I disagreed with them. I mean, you're just trying to understand, their perspective and their viewpoint. I really probably what I well, there were several things which I'll mention, but one of the things I really appreciated was talking about the history of gender and sexuality studies, rooted in the work of Alfred Kinsey and John Money. That was that was something, but I appreciated that background. For me, that was some of the meat and potatoes, as Kevin mentioned. But yeah, I mean, overall, I was really impressed with at least the cinematic quality of the film. The production value of the film, I thought, was really well done. I mean, he went to a lot of different places. Even, I mean, the stuff in Africa was really cool to have done that, and included that in the documentary. I think is important to get a um, wider coverage on this topic was really important. And so, yeah, definitely perhaps not as enjoyable as maybe like a true crime documentary or something where, there's more suspense. Boys, we got a lot of movement going on here. Um, Not quite as exciting maybe as something, yeah, with a lot of suspense, but yeah, definitely, like I said, just an important topic that I think many people should be open to watching it, and I guess that was part of also my desire to watch this. I mean, again, it wasn't so much to put this issue at the forefront or whatnot. It really was a movie that I was very eager to watch and I was curious about and was hearing lots of things about. So that was my first thing. But then also, there's a lot of people refusing to review this or refusing to talk about it. And I certainly don't feel that way. And so I've wanted to be, introduce it for us to view and to talk about it. But anyway, yeah, anything, um, Mark, why don't you, now give us a little bit more of where
The
you're at with the film.
the biggest issue I have with this movie is that it feels like satire through and through, and it makes me uncomfortable because the people that he's lined up interviews with, while he might not agree with their views, he's set up this interview to openly mock them and ask questions that are going to quote unquote trigger, and it's just that's not enjoyable for me to watch. I don't want to watch anything like that. Like, he didn't go to anyone to find out more about why they are doing what they're doing, because if he doesn't believe that they're doing something that's beneficial to the world, if he believes it's immoral or if it's evil or whatever he might feel it is, he's not approaching it in an educational way like he is probably introducing it. So it was uncomfortable to watch. It's just I know what he's doing, and I don't like the whole, when people get upset and you look around like, oh, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't like that. Like, you know what you're doing. You're purposely, like, poking at the bear. So it's just it wasn't. I understand. That's what Matt Walsh does. It's what he's against. I understand that completely, but it felt forced, and it felt like he was just trying to be funny, and it wasn't really funny, and it was more cringe than anything else, and it was uncomfortable to watch.
I mean, I think in part that's the point. I get what you're saying, and I think that was my trepidation with it at the beginning, was that I felt like, oh man, it seems like this is going in this direction, and whether I agree with him or whoever I agree with, I don't necessarily want to see people in the spotlight just being ridiculed, for my sake or for my enjoyment, or because I think I'm right and they're wrong or whatever. But no, I mean, I don't think um, he did it in a sort of childish way, like you're saying, of poking the bear. I think the point is that, a lot of this is ridiculous. And in order to, I think, drive that point home, you have to show that, I mean, these very, educated, accomplished people are either very sick, like severely sick, and probably should not be doing what they're doing and holding the positions that they're holding, or they're intentionally misleading and abusing and hurting people. So um, I think it was intentional what he was doing. At times, I think, just for my taste, I think I would have preferred maybe someone with a more the issue is that you never buy his curiosity, right? You know that he already knows what he
Mm-hmm.
believes, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
he is, but I think he genuinely is trying to, drive to understand these people, or to hear their
Well,
logic, to hear their
no, I
their
don't. I
I,
don't
arguments.
believe. I don't believe that's the case at all. I
I
don't think
Well,
he
no,
gave
no, no,
anyone the
but
chance to.
no, no, not. I don't think he's saying like to hear in order to empathize. He's saying like to hear,
Not even to
to
understand.
reveal. No, not to understand, but to reveal to everyone else like what is behind a lot of this ideology.
I think one problem. that I had, like, well, I guess it was the first quarter. I guess you're right. It's not really the first half. Was like what Mark was saying. Like he went in, and even though it was a documentary, he was making himself more the subject, the way he was acting, than the question, "What is a woman?"
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't really focused on what is a woman. It was, it was like, "Hey, I'm gonna," like he was being kind of, not childish, but he was being smart alecky about stuff, and he was poking the bear, and the subject wasn't really like, "Oh, are we gonna find out what is a woman?" No, it's, "Hey, how are you provoking this person?" And I think as it goes on later, it's the whole, if you give a person enough rope, they'll hang themselves, and he just let them talk, and you start seeing, what they do believe and how they are going without him necessarily having to poke at them as much. But that's why the first half, even though it's a documentary, it's not really following a subject. Like he became the subject of it, as opposed to, hey, we're just following this character through, seeing where it leads to.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was being more guided by him. Like, this is where I want it to go. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah,
did
True.
get a
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
uncomfortable at time when he was poking at it.
Yeah, but here and this is my second issue that after everything was said and done, he didn't answer the question himself. He didn't provide anything that made me go, okay, I know what he believes as what a woman is. So it just felt like he was just doing it like, oh, look at how crazy these people are. Period. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to look at how crazy people are because I don't care. Like I have my beliefs. I know what for me, what I believe is true and right. But for someone else, it might not be true and right. That's fine. That's the beauty of this world. You're allowed to believe whatever you want to believe. And it's just I'm not gonna sit and make fun of people for it. And I feel like that's what he was doing. Like he wasn't offering, like you guys are saying, meat and potatoes. I feel like he was just offering potatoes. He was never offering meat. And if I sit down for a meal, I want meat and potatoes.
Um, I yeah, I mean, I just
Where did
think
I
that
lose you? I'm sorry.
again, I mean, it's hard not to. I think again, this is part of his point, like how it's almost unavoidable, excuse me, for this may. And again, I see your discomfort with saying that he's the one ridiculing
No,
and
I didn't say that. I'm not saying he's ridiculing. He's absolutely opening up, but that's what I'm saying. Like he is letting them go and make fools of themselves.
yeah,
And like the questions that he's asking are all baiting. They're all like I see what he's doing. I understand what he's doing and I get that, but that's I don't care enough to see how crazy the other side is. Like if you want to sit and have a conversation with me about what I believe in, then I'll sit and talk to you about it. But if you ask me, hey, do you want to learn about what I believe in? I'm going to say no. We're going to leave it at that. Like I should be able to say no, you should be able to say no, and that's that. I just feel like here he was just making fun of people just to make fun of, and there was just there's no real substance. Like I understand there's craziness going on, but this didn't make me feel any different. Like I understand that there's people that think differently than me. I know that, but I just felt like this was an hour and 35 minutes of making fun of them, and I
no, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it is making fun. I think the fact that he takes it lightly at times is um, unfortunate and not something that I enjoyed as much either. So I think he's making light of it, but I mean, again, I don't think it's more like what Kevin said, where again you give someone enough rope and they hang themselves. Like I think he's tr- not even baiting, just asking. I think what he knows is that they won't answer these questions that are based in truth, based in reality, universe, just about universally accepted outside of certain bubbles. And what's ridiculous is, maybe ridiculous, maybe sad, definitely troubling, this intentional refusal. But like, I mean, how
wait.
it's
Before you continue, if he understands that, then what's the point of this movie?
to inform, to inform. I mean, one of them is
but it's
one of
not
the
informative. He already
no, it is.
knows.
It is one of them. You greatly see the impact that this is having on people. You see the some of the roots of where this came from. When one gentleman was doing experiments on babies' orgasms at 3 months old, like that's revealing information that people need to know. You know, about what the root of this and what people are utilizing to now hurt other people by forcing children, governments at times, the Canadian government forcing children to have surgeries, taking those rights away from their parents. So I think you're focusing a little bit on perhaps that beginning part, and maybe how much that put you off. And again, I if it was me doing this film, I would not have approached that at times so lightly, and I would have maybe to use a little bit more. I think that would have communicated more effectively to the people that perhaps disagree or are on the other side. But again, I do think that this is important and that it revealed and informed in ways that again are necessary. And again, what I was going to say before was like, I mean, think about the just the silliness of someone answering the question, what is a woman, by saying, well, it's someone who identifies a woman as a woman. Well, but then what are they identifying as? You know, and like people don't answer, or they don't know how to answer, or they're going in circles because they're intentionally not answering. Like and so I think again, it's just pulling back the curtain. And I think even there was the one doctor, I think her last name was Grossman, who was, one of the reasonable individuals who was using science, who was saying like there's a real problem that people have with gender dysphoria, and we need to learn and continue to study and figure out how to address that in a healthy way. But a lot of these other people, I mean, when you're asking a woman, a pediatrician, about medicine that she's giving to kids that's used to chemically castrate people, and then she says interview's over, it's like, some of this is intentional. It's not just accidental, or they just had, their science has led them to other beliefs. It's like people are intentionally doing evil things, to hurt others. And I think that is important. And I'll step down off of the little soapbox now. Kevin.
But yeah, even though you're speaking, like you're right, there was lots of things that were interesting on it. Um, like I said, it's hard because like there's other again, it's just a harder movie to review because we have to take everything like all the totality of it and
Mm-hmm.
then try to break it down. Um, and even what you were talking about, there was a lot of stuff like even, and that's how it felt like again, like the movie went. Like you touched on the Canada thing. I'm like that was not necessarily shocking because stuff like that happens, but the fact that it's just ignored. You know what I mean? That parents' rights could be you could go to jail for using the wrong pronoun with your child.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that your rights could be taken away, and then um and just hitting different stuff. And the most interesting thing is this is one. Well, and I think it might have been C.S. Lewis or G.K. Chesterton who said it. Is you just see obviously, and we're all guilty of it to some degree, how people think. People like to think to a conclusion, not to completion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this showed a lot. Like even when we were talking, they're like, "Oh no, this is why it's okay." Blah blah blah. Well, what about this? And I do think that because I don't want to think I'm like bashing the movie. I do think that shone a light on a lot of people, at least on this subject and these experts, where they thought to a conclusion and they're like, "This is okay," and then he pushed it and questioned it, and then like they were like, "You know what? We're not going to talk about this. We're going to go." Part of it could have been because maybe they thought they were being trapped or something,
Mm-hmm.
but you could just see that they had it fully thought out, or at least they don't have a rational explanation that they're comfortable sharing with people. That hey, well, this is why I believe this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like I said, it was just I don't know. It's hard to talk. I don't want to keep repeating myself like
Yeah.
on subjects, but like I said, overall, I think the end showed, like, you know what, we do need some people like Matt Walsh who go to those places in Virginia and say, hey, this is wrong. And it's easy to get more emotional, especially when it's the kids involved. You know what I mean? As grown adults, as grown adults, you can do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I still felt bad for that lady who was 42, and then she did it, and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I regret it."
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean? Like, when Matt Walsh went to like Virginia and said, "Hey, man, our kids are in danger, and you people are trying to stop anyone from talking opposingly," it's because they don't think their arguments can stand up against scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And to me, that's obvious. And um, again, I did go into an open mindset because I'm the one who's like, "Hey, we're all agree it's all gonna be the same thing." But I was like, you know what? Let's just see what it has. And again, I did think it shone a light on stuff. I just wish, again, I wish we could have focused on more stuff, like the history of it. I think we glossed over,
Yeah.
like, I think Kinsley and John Money, which
Mm-hmm.
was honestly, admittedly, a really cool name.
Mm-hmm.
But but I was like, hey, I wish we could learn more about exactly what went into it, how they influence everything, and it would have been really great to get into those things. Like I said, I just feel like, I don't know. Like, it's difficult. I feel like I'm just repeating myself, and now, not that I'm on a
Yeah.
soapbox, but
No, like for example, for me, I think one of the things that would have been helpful, again, I think maybe a different director, and again, this was produced by the Daily Wire. It's not like they have this, track record of like amazing documentaries. So certainly, I think there's some stuff lacking there that could have been better. One of the things that I think, for that could have addressed perhaps Mark's concerns, and they could have anticipated this, um, is to show us what these people are signing up for when they're signing up for these interviews. Because without that, you do feel like, are they having, the rug pulled out from under them? Like they're saying, "Hey, let's talk about the work that you do," and then he's hitting them with different questions or whatever. Um, so I think that would have eased some concerns of you seeing like, okay, these individuals, they knew. I mean, the one thing is they had to. If you're signing up for a documentary, and I find it hard to believe you're not going to do some some research or ask some questions at least about who the person is that's coming to interview you or whatnot. So, that leads me to believe they had to have some knowledge about what was taking place, and I'm sure they also signed releases. At some point to for the release of the film and their inclusion in it. I mean, those are just general things that I think we all know that usually take place with this type of thing. But that could have been something good to show, um is the agreement that they had, or that they knew what they were getting into or whatnot. I think would have eased or pacified some of those concerns. And then, yeah, I mean, I think I've seen some great documentaries where they do go more into depth with just information documentation. One of the things that bothered me at the beginning was the little board that he had, like with the push pins, that is making it seem like you're doing an investigation, and like you're not doing an investigation. Like you're going around interviewing people that are professionals in different fields, and you're asking them about it. But you're that's where I was like, all right, you're having fun with it, it's a mockumentary. But then he did get away from that, so I was a lot more comfortable with that. But that was one thing that definitely bothered me at the beginning. He had that map, that little board on the wall with the push pins, and he's tracing his steps, and he's saying, oh, maybe I should go here now. And it's like, yeah, we know it's not really an investigation. So those were some of the things more towards the beginning, again, that I was uncomfortable with. But again, I didn't really have difficulty moving past that, once I was just more interested in really what these people had to say, and just peeling back more and more layers to what this actually is, where it came from, what it looks like, and really the effects of it, and how it, again, like Kevin, you said it. If someone is an adult, and they choose to do something like this, to change their gender and to have a surgery and to want to be called by something completely different, and that's your choice, and fortunately we live in a country where people have freedom to be able to do that. And but certainly when you're talking about someone who's not an adult, who is not developed yet enough, who should probably not really be thinking, talking, dealing with a lot of these things, then it's really troubling. And I think, at the heart of it, his passion, at least it seemed like, again, from him even going to Loudoun County, Virginia, to lease a home there to be able to speak at this board meeting. It definitely seems like a lot of what drives him and his passion is, the effect that this is having on young people.
From what I understand with interviews, normally the person who is doing the interview gives a list of questions to the person who is being interviewed, so you can understand what questions are being asked and you're not
Yeah.
surprised by anything.
Yeah.
From all the interviews that I've seen, normally the ones that go to this is over are usually because they've asked questions that are off script. So I want to believe that in his list of questions, he didn't put what is a woman, and he found a way to segue to that question, which for me is baiting. Now, if he can prove that that question was in his list of questions that was given to the person that's being interviewed, then I stand corrected. But I don't believe that question would be on the list of questions that he planned on asking, which also again makes me feel like this was everything was just a baited interview.
Yeah, I guess my problem with that is that we don't know. I mean, there was the gentleman from
We don't.
the professor from the University of Tennessee, who said in the interview, he said, when I saw the list of questions that you wanted to talk about, he's like, I kind of got an idea for where you were going with this. So that would
Well,
lead
that
would
just means that he agrees. He has the same
Okay,
ideas
okay,
as
but
Matt
my
Walsh.
point is that you don't know, and I don't know. So I would prefer, when talking about a movie like this, is to not focus on what I don't know, but rather to focus on what I do know and what was shown. Because, and even I again, even I'm making some assumptions, right? Because I'm talking about them signing release clauses and things like that, which I safely assume, takes place. I know it takes place with reality TV, and so
Of course,
I can
but you
safely
also
assume that took place here. But at the
right.
same time, it's also
Okay.
an assumption that I'm making. So it's not what I would
Okay.
prefer to focus on, rather than what was actually caught on camera through the voice and through the faces of these individuals that were being asked questions up front directly.
Yeah, but that's also but that also can play to the complete other side. We have no idea what was said or what was done. We have no idea what was sent over. So yes, I'm going to sit on exactly what you're saying. We don't know. So when I sit back and look at how he's approaching all of these interviews, even the way he was sitting with the people that he knew he wasn't going to agree with, he was sitting kind of cocked in his chair to the side, either left or right. But like the people that he knew were aligned with his views, he was more sitting up straight. So it just, I can tell with his demeanor, he was walking into it going, this person's crazy, and I'm going to make sure you understand that. And that's I'm not interested in watching that. And if you go back, you'll see his demeanor. It changes for different interviews. The ones that are aligned with his views, he's more attentive. The ones that aren't, he's given like this blue steel smoldering face. It was funny to watch. And so it's just, it's tough to watch and go, I really feel like he's giving these people a chance to speak their quote unquote craziness because he thinks they're crazy, and that's fine. He's allowed to think whatever he wants, but he's also I again feel like he's just making fun of them the whole time.
Yeah, but even your logic there, like I disagree with, because actually, when you're speaking to someone that you know disagrees with you, you should be, especially under these circumstances, you should be even more attentive in order to be able to counter their arguments, not less attentive. That's what I would do maybe if I was in a conversation with someone that I didn't want to be in, and I just wanted to blow them off. I'd sit there but like not be listening to them or not pay attention. Like
But
if
Juan, he
I'm
is blowing them off. He's asking the question that they can't answer and just leaving it at that. Like he's not providing any, again, meat to the conversation. He's just going, "What is a woman?"
he
So
doesn't
when
need to.
they're
If
stumped, they just go, "Oh, I don't know what to
why would
say."
he need to provide me if he's the
Because
interviewer?
he's trying to trump them. Like it's just again, I he knows what he's going into and he knows what he's doing. That's why I can't sit and watch that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like you're trying to say that he's being informative. No, he's not. He's not. He's just trying to say, hey, these people are crazy and let me show you. And I can't sit and watch that. Like for me, that's not a movie I want to watch. So
But
I
like
guess
you're just making up your mind about these things. Like that's the point that I'm making, is like you're just making
well,
up your like that's just what he's doing. I know that that's what he's doing, and so I don't have time for that. It's like
he
but
is.
you don't know. I mean, but that's just your opinion. That's not a fact. You're saying it like it's a fact. It's purely your opinion
But
based off what you
but
saw.
all three of us has started off saying that this was started as satire. This was a satirical movie. So if it starts off as satire, how am I supposed to take it for anything else than that?
Because his point is that the
He had no point. He never answered the question, what is a
no, his
woman?
point is that the topic in itself is satirical. That it's ridiculous for someone to in 2022, someone who's currently a Supreme Court justice, to say I cannot answer what a woman is. Like we are living in idiocracy. We're living, and even worse than that, right? Because when you can say that you're an idiot or that you're ignorant, then you have an excuse. You can plead ignorance, right? When you know better, when you actually know what the answer to that question is, and you refuse to answer it because you have ulterior motives, then that does need to be revealed, and that person does need to be on the spot because there's malicious intent there. So for me, when it comes to that situation, yes, you should be ridiculed. Yes, you should be put on the spot because you should know what you're doing. Now, you know that there are people there though, that it was, you got a good sense of which side they were at, right? Have they been fooled? Have they been duped? Or do they really genuinely believe this? You can kind of get a sense who those people are, and you can also get a sense of who the people are that there's more to it. Think in light of that, and it's very hard to take all of that into consideration and make distinctions, right? And say, well, this person, it's just, you need to separate facts from fiction, science from non-science, reality from non-reality. You need to separate that and show that the areas where it's being muddled and it's being manipulated and toyed with, whether it's ridiculous or not, it's wrong, and it needs to stop. And we need to fight against it in any way that we can, with just truth and logic and reality, saying a man is a man, it's biological, a woman is a woman. Now, what you choose to do with that and how you choose to live your life, I have no say in that. I have a say in my life and in the way that I raise my children and whatnot. What you do with your life, I don't have the right to infringe upon that. You should be able to do whatever you want. That's the society that has been created here in the United States. And that's all good and very well, and I'm totally fine with that, right? But this is, crossing, so many lines there. And I think that was a lot of what was being revealed.
And one thing y'all mentioned, it does seem like what it was revealing to me, and I guess it might be because I have the girls and I'm a girl dad. Like the slight like war on women, where like you mentioned Supreme Court justice, like she's celebrated as the first Black woman Supreme Court justice, and she can't even say what a woman is, right? That's who you were talking about, the lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they're like, hey, what's a woman? They're like, hey, I can't even say what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. Yeah, but we're all here celebrating the fact you're the first Black woman Supreme Court justice,
Yeah.
and we can't defend it. And it's like there's this war specifically on women that, hey, and they're being marginalized and pushed aside, which I think it touches on, but again, it's done very lightly that you don't even get into that as much.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think when I was listening to you, because I was trying to listen to both you and Mark on both your points you were saying, it comes back to not necessarily the subject matter, which I think you're arguing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, the subject matter is so important. It is. And what Mark I think was coming off is like, just like any film, how like he may like slasher flicks, I may like romantic comedies, you may like action adventure. Like, I don't think the style that it was presented in, is everyone's taste, and I think that's what was offsetting a Mark. Not necessarily, yeah, we're all making assumptions on what he was thinking and how he was approaching it,
Yeah.
but ultimately the presentation, like what didn't sit well with Mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
It was the way he was presenting it was like, yeah, but I didn't feel like he. And of course, all we could go is like even your assumptions. All we could go is what was presented to us in that hour and a half, hour and 40 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
and present it. You know what I mean? It wasn't his taste. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I would have. I think it would have like benefited a little bit better from going. And again, this is my thing and stuff. If they found someone who was thinking about transitioning and saying, "Hey, let's follow you on your journey. Why are you doing this? Let's interview a person like, oh, you're a guy who wants to become a woman. Well, what does that mean to you? What does a woman mean
Mm.
to you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And stuff like that."
Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of my children on her friends, like, oh, well, she thinks she's a boy. I'm like, you know what? That's so condescending and demeaning that this 12-year-old girl can think she knows what it means to be a boy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not that she's tomboyish, but she thinks she's a boy. And I even told my daughter, like, even as an adult, like, I don't know what it is to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I can think that I think differently. I can think this, but like for me to devolve what women are to saying, oh, well, you know what? I feel like I'm you.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what it is to go to have hormones, shooting crazy like my daughters do, once a month, or trying to take tests while, dealing with cramps or any of these little slight things, let alone the big thing that it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
And no woman knows what it's like to be a man, where you feel the pressure of growing up and you're like, hey man, I need to be doing more. I have this call to be wild and adventurous, but I have to tame it in and do this. Like, there's no way as a woman that you know that, especially as a child, that hey, I think more like you than I do these people. I'm like, we all think differently. I think Jordan Peterson said it. Yeah, there's girls with females with masculine traits, and there's men with who are more feminine. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
we don't just go around carving them up. And I think it does come down to dollars and cents. And it's like $70,000 a pop. Sure, let's cut you up. Like, we're not giving you treatment to see what's going on. And again, back to what I was talking to my daughter, there's more. There's just something mentally playing, emotionally playing at it. And again, that's why I think it would have benefited from finding someone who's thinking about doing transition, saying, "Hey, what's going on? What do you believe a woman is that you feel that you're not a man, you're more that." You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that could have delved more into like, what is a woman?
Yeah.
And even a woman who wants to transition as a man, like, why don't you feel that you are a woman? At
Mm-hmm.
least, and I think that's why the interesting part was the one who did transition, the 42-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
where she was like, "Yeah, I felt more masculine, I felt more alpha, and all this was being fed to me." Like, to me, that was more interesting because you saw what her opinion was of what a woman should have been and what a man should have been,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No." She came to the conclusion that, like, I think I'm a man, and then she's like, "Wait, I'm not, and I can't go back."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That was articulated. And I do, again, I mean, I think we all agree on that point. Like, it could have been done better. I think it could have been done more powerfully, in a way that is a little bit more sensitive, I guess I would say, or just conscious that ultimately you want, I mean, I think of it, again, the importance of this film and the subject matter. It should be something that, you perhaps want to get as wide of an audience as possible. And, perhaps his approach, and I think some of their amateurism, is that a word? I don't know. Um, or even in even in the way that it was written and approached, certainly could have been even better. And therefore, what probably hurts it, to Mark's point, is that the way that it's done, regardless of Matt Walsh's intentions, just cinematically, some of the choices, and again, directorially and with the writing, and the editing and whatnot, could have been done in a way to bring in more people who are maybe have opposing points of view, to create more dialogue, instead of what I think this kind of does, which is kind of just fuel the side that already feels a certain way, and maybe even further divide.
Yeah, I feel like it went down more the lines of a Michael Moore type documentary,
Mm, that's a
where
good, yeah.
he starts presenting, like, he's obviously presenting his side. And again, I don't want to make any assumptions that he left anything out on purpose, because I
Right.
think that's what Michael Moore does. But it's more like, hey, I know who I want to present it to, so it's not necessarily a documentary. It's more of a docudrama,
Yeah.
where I'm going to like splice it up a little bit so I can, have my desired effect come across.
Yeah.
I don't think
As
I've ever
opposed to
heard
like,
of docudrama. That's pretty good.
oh yeah, because that's what they describe, like Fahrenheit 9/11 and Sicko and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like Murder Ball and Grizzly Man and, what was the other one, Hoop Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, hey, we do spice it up a little bit, because of course you got to make it interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately we don't know where we're ending up and we don't know where we're going. But
Yeah.
like what you said, like he's presenting towards, like, I guess, preaching to his choir almost.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, this is what we believe, and this is what I'm going to give y'all. And again, we all mostly agree with the subject of it, but it felt like it was like slanted a little bit towards. And hey, it may have not been. It may have been, this is exactly what everything came
Right.
across as.
Well, and I think that's a great point, and that brings me, I think, to an interesting question, which again, I think sheds a light on the troubling times that we're living in. Right. So, Matt Walsh is clearly someone, a conservative, right? He works for the Daily Wire. Like, we know what his biases are and what his beliefs are, to a certain extent, right? He's also a religious person. Um, but also because he works for the Daily Wire, because he's so out there about his beliefs, he doesn't have a lot to lose from making this movie. I mean, he's received death threats and whatnot, but he knew that that would come with the territory. So in a way, like, he could afford to make this movie. I think what we all would want, right, as we're expressing, is we would like, it would be awesome to see this tackled from a neutral party, someone that's like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm not jumping to conclusions, I just want to investigate. But based on the subject, on the answers that we saw here, and like, there's a probable way that even that movie, from that neutral perspective, would go, if you're honestly, seeking truth, it's seeking what's based in reality. When the and then if someone side didn't like the outcome of it, then they would cancel this person, or they would also give, death threats to someone who maybe is not, even if someone from who wasn't conservative chose to make this movie, they would be considered a far right extremist. I mean, look at Joe Rogan, is a person who has said that he's a Democrat, he votes Democrat, and yet, because of the conversations that he has and because of some of his views, he gets accused of being a far right extremist. So it's like, I guess my question is, could a neutral person even truly, authentically, and honestly make this movie successfully. And I think that's, I don't know that they could. And I think that's even, that in itself is very troubling, that it even takes someone like Matt Walsh, who we already, everyone knows, it's no surprise, like everyone knows what his argument is, you know, and what his views are about this. But who else could make this movie? Who else would be willing to? Who else, you know, wouldn't have anything really to lose, only more to gain? um, who could, you know, genuinely be like, hey, I am genuinely neutral and I really want to know. I mean, if you're out there and you want to make this movie, make it. And you at least have three people here who will watch that movie. If you're willing to risk, you know, potentially, you know, losing a lot by trying to do that.
And something interesting you touched upon, like really quick, is like the danger in society is that some things like this subject, like even these subjects, are so deified to the point that simple questions are just, they're not just discouraged, they're like demonized.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like even like you said, like, hey, make this. If you were to make this, like, but even if a liberal person did it, just ask a question. You know, like, hey, have we thought this through?
Yeah.
Is automatically like, oh, you're horrible. You're this. We're gonna call you all these different names until you bend to our mindset. And it's sort of like what even what they accused religion was back in the day, where like you can't question anything that the church says or anything, or you know, all this other stuff. It becomes such like this insular religion, and they don't even realize that they've become this. And I think Plato said like the unexamined life is not worth living. But
Mm.
then you also have to ask stuff like, is the unexamined viewpoint not worth having? Because we all have viewpoints,
Mm.
and we should all at least be open to like, okay, like, well, where do you think I'm lacking? And then they'll point out, and it's easy to say, hey, I don't have an answer for that, but that's a good point. I'll look into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we believe our viewpoint holds up, and I think that's what it is. Like when I was listening to you, like people have these viewpoints that can't be questioned, can't be examined, because ultimately, I think I said it earlier, like they don't think it. I don't really believe they think it can hold up to scrutiny. So they're like, hey, let's just shut down any questioning of it because this is what we want to believe, and it's okay. Like if you want to have that belief system, you can have it. It's just you shouldn't have to shut down everyone. Like you don't want to answer the question, and again, it's not about the movie now. We're just talking. I'm like, you don't want to have the question asked. That's fine, but you shouldn't stop me from asking a third party, another person who's not you, who may want to engage me in the conversation. 'Cause I think even in the protests when we saw this, they're like, "Oh, don't talk to him," blah blah blah. I'm like, well, let the people talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just something that when you were talking about, you know, um, on just having a filmmaker be able to come out and make a film, I'm like, it's a huge risk
Yeah.
because again, Matt Walsh could take the risk, but there's other people who may not have the resources that he has,
Mm-hmm.
and but it is hopefully someone can come out and say, hey, we're just going to look at the subject, we're just gonna not paint a picture for you, we're just going to throw the paint up, and you tell us, you know, what comes of it for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is that neutrality is disappearing, you know, because one of the things that was interesting was when he was just on the street, like asking normal people, and I, you know, quote unquote normal, but average people just walking on the street. They're not experts, they're not doctors, they're not any. And he's just asking them, like, what is a woman? Um, there's a sense, right, that people know, you know, because they've always known, because we've always, you know, we've known this for a very long time, but now they don't know how they should answer, or what the, you know, you know, publicly or you know, generally accepted, you know, answer is, in order to not piss someone off, you know, in order to, you know, not be punished for it, you know, in order to just fit in and live a normal life. It's, so it's no longer like what is the right answer. It's almost like what is the appropriate answer, you know, what is the politically correct answer, you know, so that I can just continue to move on and live a normal life, you know, even though I'm kind of um, uh, yeah, betraying my knowledge and understanding, and my beliefs and my values even. So that's a dangerous thing. I mean, we didn't even talk about the sports component,
Oh,
and how, again, this is a real threat, to women, in many different fields, athletics being one of them. But I did, just kind of in conclusion, although I will continue to give you guys a chance if there's anything more you want to say before we go into our ratings. But I guess, not that this was my intention, so I wouldn't say it was an experiment, just maybe more something that I was curious about is, you know and wanting to, even by doing this review, is wanting to present, not that we all agree or that we have a certain viewpoint, and hopefully people will listen enough even to this episode to get to this portion where I'm saying, like, I just think it's important to be able to talk about it. It's
Hmm.
important for me to say a woman is this, and for you to say, well, no, I disagree, or I don't know, and for that to be okay, for us to say, well, we have different views, and my views are based on this and yours are based on that, and but that should be okay, to at least be able to watch a movie like this, or take a topic, and to be able to discuss it without, getting so offended, or, having to force someone to have your view. Like, how does that help individuals? How does that help society? How does that help the world? To keep us in these ideological boxes where we can't even interact with people of opposing views. So I guess that was what I was curious about, was, what would it look like for us to even have this conversation, and to hopefully just encourage anyone who might be listening to say, like, it well, I don't know if it is okay, but it should be okay to express an opinion or a belief, and it should be okay to talk about it.
Yeah, it really all is dependent on the person. If they decide they want to be someone that can converse things like this, but usually people are one-sided and they're going to tell you their truth and that's it. And that's, that's life. And I feel like that's kind of what Matt Walsh did. He said, "Hey, this is what I believe. If you don't believe that, then you're crazy."
Do you want to give your rating? Do you want to
Are
start us
we
off?
there yet?
oh, before I want to share one thing that came to mind because I know you mentioned Joe Rogan and
Yeah.
how people because I think he's more libertarian, like he tries to be more down the line.
Hmm.
But somebody who recently spoke up about it was Bill Maher, and he's as left and liberal as you can be.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you caught like his he had a
Yeah.
monologue on it on his show, and he was just simply talking about how, hey, you can't shut down the conversation on, yeah, there's more transgenderism in the world, but why is it more located in like California and New York as opposed to like Iowa and
Hmm.
Illinois? Is it really like, and it's nothing wrong. And he said when the kids are involved to ask, hey, how about we look at what's going on with the kids as
Mhm.
opposed to just saying like, hey, this is what it is. He goes, and he even talks about it. He got threats that they've been calls to like kick him off the air. They want to take him off the air, and he is as left as they get. Like he's not even remotely trying to be down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see how like even and it's not even neutrality. It's just questioning, makes you the enemy. Being neutral makes you the enemy, and it should be okay, especially when kids are involved. Again, as an adult, I don't really care what you do, but when kids are involved, say, hey, why is this happening so much? Why are these kids like? Why is my daughter's friend think she's this? You know what I mean? What's happening beyond the scope of just, hey, I think I'm a boy.
Yeah.
And it should be okay to be able to question those things and then not questions like, oh, why do you think this, but like, hey, what's going on, like what, walk me through your process on why you believe this is who you are,
Yeah.
besides the fact you were just being told that's what you are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think, again, whichever side of this particular issue you're on, we should all fight for um, the right to have a discussion, for the right to have an opinion, to have a dialogue, and the right to disagree, right? And to still be able to love people, that you disagree with. And a lot of that, it comes from listening, right? By being able to have conversations. But when there are people or organizations or agencies or groups who are trying to just shut down conversations and saying you're not allowed to have an opinion about that, you don't have a right to speak on that, you will be punished if you say this or say that, or don't align with this or don't agree with that, like that is a problem and a real threat, to um, our way of life, and ultimately to just peace overall, among people. So yeah, I'll go into my rating, but I thank you guys for watching the movie and for having this conversation, and I hope that this was definitely a pivot away from what we normally do, and it's not like we're heading in a new direction. We'll still, do our
I
you.
plan on watching movies. I don't know what
Listen,
Yeah,
direction you going
exactly.
in. I'm watching movies, bro.
wait,
No,
wait till you
this,
get it. Wait till y'all get a load of the next one. You're gonna
yeah.
see we haven't pivoted
Boy.
anything.
So,
Maybe I quit now.
but I say, for me, again, I agree. I would have liked to have seen this done, a lot better, and I think it could have even created more dialogue and more conversation. Um, if it is possible, I don't know that it is possible today, but if that is possible, I think some different choices could have lent themselves better to that opportunity. But because I think it is such an important topic, um, even just for the conversation that it does ignite, I would recommend this to anyone who's willing to watch it. So um, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say two for me, 2.25 out of three, or out of our little Jerry's rating scale, where a three is great, a two is just okay, and a one is a strong distaste for the film. I'm at a 2.25 little Jerry's.
I will go next. For me, this is a true and true one. I don't believe that Matt Walsh approaches this in a way that is going to be argumentative. I don't think there's any constructive conversation going on. I really truly feel like he's just poking fun at people, which um, I'm usually okay with that when the other person's involved. But I don't think they're involved, and so it's not sitting for me. While I might agree with things that Matt Walsh says and does, I just don't agree with the way he did things that he did. So for me, this is a one little Jerry.
All right. For me, material wise and subject matter, I thought it was a three. Filmmaking wise, I saw it more closer to a one. So I just fell in the middle and I give it a two because it's not a meh. Like I think I would tell people, oh yeah, you should watch it. It brings up some good points and maybe it'll stir up some conversations with people. It's just I may watch it again, I may not. Like if somebody wants to watch it, I'm like, yeah, we'll watch it. But it's nothing that I'm really running out there to tell people, hey, this is, you know, catch this. But it is something, that may be able to stir up some conversation. So, like I said, to me, it's just a middle of the road. So I give it a two.
All right, that is fair, and again, I appreciate your guys' views and opinions on this one. Looking forward to moving on from this and into something different, whatever that may be. It'll be Kevin's choice. But yeah, if if you're out there, if sat through this and there's something that you want to share, definitely comment. Hit us up on our Instagram page.
Tell us we suck. We like that too.
Yeah, that too. I mean, there's a lot of that going on.
It
So
gives us a good chuckle.
We tell each other we suck, so it's okay.
yeah, tell us whatever you want, but we would love to hear it and would be love to connect. So anyway, great to chat with you, bro chachos. Love you, miss you, talk to you soon.
Kalozaruski, is that what we say?
Klozaruski. Yeah, shoes are coming off.
Love you.
Love y'all.
Bye.